I'll call this meeting to order. It's the regularly scheduled meeting of the Transportation Public Works Committee, this day, December 1st, 2015. I'm Councilmember Reich. I'll be chairing the committee. I'm joined by my colleagues on the committee, Councilmember Gordon, Bender, Palmisano, and Council Vice President Glidden. We are a quorum and can continue with today's agenda. We have 13 items today, 2 of which are discussion items. The remainder are consent items. I'll go through those items. Any committee member can pull them if they so desire. Item 1 is 6th Avenue North Street paving project, and that's a project designation setting the public hearing. And that public hearing is for February 2nd, 2016. And then, of course, the needed items to proceed with that project. Item 2 is the 26th Avenue North Street reconstruction project, and that's from West Broadway to Lyndale. And we will set that public hearing for February 2nd, and then, of course, that's to initiate the actions for that project as well. Item 3 is likewise 54th Street reconstruction project, Penn Avenue South, Lyndale Avenue South. And that public hearing will also be February 2nd, 2016, and a series of actions to proceed with that project. Item 4 is a capital project closeout, and that's a resolution receiving the final cost of the projects and a resolution requesting concurrence of the Board of Estimate Taxation, and this will also be referred to the Ways and Means Committee. Item 5 is the Transportation Alternatives Safe Routes to School grant application. Those applications are in our packet, and that will be referred to Ways and Means. Item 6 is the 11th Avenue South Bridge contract amendment. That's authorizing amendment to the contract for a set amount of money that's referred in the agenda. Item 7 is rehabilitation of sanitary manholes, contract amendment for that work. That'll be, both those items will be referred to Ways and Means Committee. 8th Street, item 8 is the 8th Street reconstruction request for proposals for engineering design services. And that will be referred to Ways and Means. Item 9 is the Xcel Energy Light Emitting Diode LED rate tariff comments, and approving the comments regarding the Xcel Energy LED rate tariff for submittal to the Public Utilities Commission. Item 10 is a bid for Skyway boiler replacement project, and that's accepting a low bid for that project. That will be referred to Ways and Means. Item 11 is the bid for removal of snow and ice public sidewalks, and we will do a low bid with Sullivan Marine Construction for that work for the amount listed. That'll also be referred to Ways and Means. Those are 11 consent items. Does any member wish to pull them? Seeing none, I'll move all items as listed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. Those items carry, and we can now move to the discussion portion of the agenda. Good morning, Director Kaki.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. We had the communications department put together a video for regarding our water treatment facility, and we wanted to show that this morning. But first, I'd like to have Bridget Borenstein come up and speak a little bit about the video, and then Glenn Garrett's our director will also speak.
Thank you. Good morning,
Morning.
Chair Wright, council members. I'm Bridget Borenstein. I'm the Deputy Director of the Communications Department. I'm just going to say just a little bit. I know that we want to get to the video, but just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of how this came about and how the effect it may have internally and externally. So this video that you're going to see features Andy Wire. He's this isn't his actual title, but he is a water taster, and you'll see what that means when you see this video. Really fascinating job. And this came about, I have some of my staff here and I just want to recognize them. So Kate Smith is our interim communications director, and this was really her brainchild. She and Casper Hill, who's on our staff, he works really closely with Public Works. He was talking about Andy, and Kate, with her fresh eyes on our department and coming in with her many years experience in video and media, said, you know, that could probably make a pretty fascinating video. And so Megan Lee, who does internal communications on our staff, and Kim Brown, who I'm sure you know, Kim works on our video staff and is just a fantastic producer, photographer, editor. They got together, they went out to the water plant, they met Andy. And when you see this video, I hope you'll feel what I feel. I felt like I was there when I see this video. It really goes inside. It brings an appreciation to the expertise that we have on our staff. Someone like Andy and so many other people on our staff, we're just so fortunate to have this level of expertise. Our hope with these videos is that it can shine a light on the expertise and the great work that staff does here so that other staff members meet meet people like Andy and others, but also, it's potentially a recruiting tool to show how cool it is to work at the city of Minneapolis. So this video series is called A City That Works. This is the very first time we're trying it, so this is the first video in the series. Public Works, they've just been rock star partners on this very first try, so we thank them for that. And speaking of rock stars, I'll turn it over to Glenn.
I didn't pay her for that. Chair Reich, committee members. Andy actually is in the audience. If Andy would just stand up, you'll see him in the video here in a second. But Andy is a member of a team of over 200 people who transform on average over 60 million gallons a day of raw Mississippi River water into a high quality drinking water that is delivered to the tap of over 500,000 people. Specifically, Andy and his work group are focused on water quality issues. From a water quality perspective, drinking water regulations fall into one of two buckets. Primary standards are enforceable standards that focus on public health risks, and secondary standards are non-enforceable that are tied to the aesthetic quality parameters like taste and odor, which a lot of people can relate to. I am proud to report that Minneapolis tap water meets all drinking water regulatory requirements. So without further ado, we'll play the video.
My name is Andy Wire. I'm a chemist and water bacteriologist. So that was today's going in and yesterday's coming out. What I do is work on keeping water quality standards, taste and odor, as well as bacteriology and bacteriological safety in the water. A crisp, clean, smooth glass of water is what you need. A little grassy, a little earthy. I mean, imagine just taking a 5-gallon bucket of water and putting a drop of sardine oil in there, and how much water you have to put into that bucket to get rid of that flavor. I mean, it's not good. So what we usually do is I'll just throw a little in here. Very similar to wine. It's pretty good water today. I do taste the water every day, but we also check many other components. We probably run 1,000 tests a week. That's all that little bacteria would be. So we're really trying to use the actual lab data now to help drive water quality to improve it for the people. Nitrite, nitrate, all clear, all safe. The taste and odor work that we're doing has improved the taste of the water, and it's been an initiative that I'm happy to be a part of.
Super. Any final comments on how the department will proceed with you kind of suggested there's going to be more to the series, and I certainly would hope so because this was a great start.
Well, thank you. We're so happy to hear that, Chair Reich, and credit goes, of course, to our staff members who made it just come to life. Our plan is to probably do a video. Our goal initially will be to do videos each quarter and just really seek out fascinating jobs and employees that are just doing great work. So yes, our plan is that you will see more of these.
Very good. Councilmember Glidden?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I did take a look at the video before today. There was an email that went around with the clip, and I loved it the first time I saw it. The thing that was interesting to me was that this was about someone with a really unique job, and I thought that it kind of highlights just the breadth of things that we do at the city and the kinds of talents that are involved at the city, and Andy, I'm sure never thought he'd be the subject of this video, but you did a great job, and I loved your comments on the earthy and the brassy tones in the water, but that's true. I mean, sort of the taste of the water is very, very important to people, and just interesting that this function I had no idea existed within the city of Minneapolis is so influential to how people enjoy their everyday life here in Minneapolis and the surrounding cities. So anyway, good idea. Thank you for highlighting this part of the city of Minneapolis.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, first, I just want to thank the communications department. I think they did just a marvelous job on this. Also, the idea of bringing them to this committee, if you're okay with that, we would like to continue doing that. I think it just gives the public an opportunity to see we provide a lot of services for our citizens, and it gives, I think, the public an opportunity to better understand those services that we're providing. So.
Well, it does in a very compelling and engaging way. I mean, we can go out there and don't take our services for granted all day long, like eat your vegetables. But this really draws you in, it humanizes it, and even just the backdrop of seeing the beautiful facility that we have up in Fridley, our water plant, I call it the water cathedral, which is just magnificent. But at the end of the day, it delivers what the people need, and to have a story behind that, I think is very compelling. And also, I think maybe we're starting trends. Maybe there'll be water tasting parties now throughout the city that the new generation will pick up. And since we invented snow biking here in Minneapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take that segue. I biked here today, actually, in the snow. I wanted to just echo what my colleagues had said, but also I think that's a great idea to bring the videos back to this committee, and wanted to note, such a significant portion of our budget really goes to our Public Works Department and the day-to-day maintenance in these basic services. So I think anything we can do to highlight that and sort of bring it to life for our taxpayers, to just show people where their dollars are going, and then, the importance of these things, I think, are often kind of overlooked in our public discussions about where our budget dollars are going. I think it's a really great idea, and I'm excited to see the future installments.
So to our viewing public, stay tuned for the next installment. Same time, same place. And now we can move to the next discussion item. It's our last item on the agenda, and this will be the open streets conversation, and a lot of work that's gone into getting to this point, and very much look forward to the staff report.
Yes, Mr. Chair, what we have today is we have a resolution that we're asking the council to pass associated with open streets, and Matthew Dirdall here will explain a bit about open streets and the intent of the resolution.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Matthew Dirdall. I'm the Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator. I work in the Planning and Programming Division of Public Works. Thank you for the opportunity to address the resolution offered by Chair Reich. I have brief comments today, but I'm realizing we should have brought some videos. We have a lot of great videos of our past open streets that we could have shared, so it's noted for next time. I'd like to start with just a brief overview of what Open Streets is. Open Streets is an exciting initiative that's been going on in Minneapolis for several years. The idea is that you close down a street to cars and then open it up to everybody else. It's an opportunity to help people connect to their community in a different way. It's an opportunity to think of streets as public spaces and think of streets in a different way when you don't have cars that you're used to. We have a lot of great examples of that, Lindale, Nicollet, basically all over the city, and we can get to that in a minute. The history of open streets is rooted in health. The Bicycle Coalition, the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition, and Blue Cross Blue Shield have been putting on these events, or I guess the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition has been putting on the events with the great support of Blue Cross Blue Shield and their Center for Prevention. So Open Streets has really long been about healthy living and active living, trying to help people incorporate biking and walking into their daily life. But it's also about local businesses. It's also about civic pride and sustainable transportation. You can see here in 2011 and 2012, Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition hosted the first 3 events. And then since the events have increased and gotten more and more popular, this past year, or actually this year that we're currently in, there were 8 events. And going forward, at least into 2016, the idea is that we would look for up to 8 events in 2016. So moving on to the resolution today and the future of open streets, I think one of the critical differences is distinguishing open streets as a city-led event or a city event, differentiating it from the city block permitting process, which has currently been the venue. And I think that'll be really good for a lot of ways. First, to help clarify, I guess, what the essence of complete or open streets is. We'll get to complete streets later. So the framework for 2016 will largely be the same as 2015. our staff will work with the Bicycle Coalition to identify up to 8 routes in 2016. And then beyond that, I think the anticipation would be for a city RFP to go out to help select routes after that. I believe that's all I have in a nutshell. I guess I'll turn it back to Chair.
Any questions? Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to follow up on your last comment about the RFP process to select open streets locations. Did I understand that's how you're going to do that?
I believe so.
Yeah. So can you give us any more sense of timeline on that? When would the RFP be ready to go out, and when would you expect responses? And will there be sessions to help inform organizations how they can put together a best application?
Sure. I think I believe my perspective is that we would deal with those details in 2016. Currently, we were just planning on getting ready for the 2016 routes, but all of those questions are things that we would look for in 2017.
Mr. Chair.
Am I mistaken? Have you already selected the 2016 routes?
Director Kaki, perhaps clarification.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Glidden, maybe just a little clarification. What we would anticipate is that the RFP isn't necessarily associated with the selection of the routes as much as selection of someone to manage and operate the events. And so the routes that we have for 2016 are still being developed, but I think they're going to be very similar to the routes that we had in previous year. And then during the process of getting an RFP out on the street and getting a selection of the entity that's going to operate and maintain open streets for us for that following year, the routes will then be tied down at that point in time. So I just want to make sure that the understanding is that the RFP is not necessary for the selection of the routes, but it's really selection for the services actually that the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition is providing today.
Okay, so that's helpful. Thank you for that clarification. And it seems like we might need to circle the wagon so we know a little bit more of the process pieces. I guess I'll go back then to my original comment, which is trying to understand best how I can direct organizations that are seeking to have their street location considered as part of the process. And I think, here's kind of the thing. You kind of have probably a big variety of expertise in how you put this thing together. Because I will say it's huge event organizing efforts that need to be put into these open streets events. And of course, those streets that have had the events multiple years, they grow in that expertise, and and that's great. And I think I'm not seeking to change existing locations where those routes are successful and getting more successful. But I will say again, with the popularity of this, there are more locations where folks are trying to understand how they can put together that good package. And I just have been not completely clear on how to direct folks in terms of timeline, readiness, and those kinds of things. And that just might be helpful. So we're just as clear and transparent as we can be.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Glidden, I think the short answer to that, and it is a bit of a shift this year, that we are going to be more involved in the selection of routes and working with the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition on identifying which routes that we are going to do for 2016 and in the future. So my suggestion is if communities are interested, they should contact Matthew, and he'll be working with the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition. With that said, open streets is very popular, and so we're going to probably have more demands for more open streets than we're able to accommodate. And I think the plan for 2016 was to try to stay fairly consistent with the number of routes that we had last year. There may be some modifications and some additions or subtractions, but and then we can kind of revisit that and look at 2017 and into the future on how we move around the routes.
Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. And I did notice that in the resolution it says the City Council will approve the number of open streets events, their locations, and any partners in supporting the events each year. So I think then the question is, what when will we do that for each year? Is that something we'll do presumably in the winter, sometime in January, February, March, first quarter of each year? We'll have an opportunity to review those and then decide on them as a council. Am I right in those assumptions? First quarter?
Councilmember Gordon? Yes, that is correct. Did you indicate first quarter of the year or?
Yes, that's what I was.
No, I would anticipate that we would probably want to identify, because there is some budget issues associated with this on how many we're going to sponsor. So I would think would probably be either third or fourth quarter of each year that we'll try to have the package put together for council approval.
Okay, that just makes me curious then. Have we approved the package already for next year?
What we've approved for 2016 is the number of events that we're going to host. And as I mentioned earlier, the particular routes I said are going to be fairly similar to what we had last year. I think there's just one or two routes that we're evaluating. And Matthew, do you have any more to add to that, or?
I believe that's correct. We're working with the Bicycle Coalition sort of as we speak to finalize the proposed routes for 2016. Many of them are the same.
So if I could then, so did this committee review the number and the routes yet? Or we're just thinking that the number is going to be approved as part of the budget approval on the 11th?
The latter.
All right. It seems to me that it might, and that's fine. But once we pass this resolution, it seems to tee up something that maybe is a little more thoughtful and in a package that will be reviewed all together every year. And I appreciate that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm happy to support this resolution.
Right. But maybe if I could just add to that, Mr. Chair and Councilmember Gordon, I'm viewing 2016 as a little bit of a transition year. That previously the open streets have been completely managed by the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition. At this point in this resolution, as we are officially adopting that, open streets is going to be hosted and supported by the city. We are still going to be looking for an entity like Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition to help us manage and operate that. And so for 2016, it's a bit of a transition year. We're going to be working on helping them better identify routes and issues with routes and so forth. And then hopefully then by 2017, we'll be getting into a more formal process of having the routes identified in front of the council for approval.
And then just to clarify, for 2017, it will be the fourth quarter of 2016 when we're probably going to be approving the routes and the locations and the number. Correct?
That would be correct. That would be our desire, yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's sort of come out now through the questions, which I think are great questions, but just wanted to note the significance of this resolution, which is us taking more of a leadership role as a city in what really originated as a community event with the Bicycle Coalition and others coming to the city and saying, we'd like to do this event. And now it's really more the city taking ownership of that. And I think that speaks to the popularity of the events, the way that the events and the coalition and others have helped build political support for open streets over the past many years. I was pregnant with my oldest when we first started meeting about open streets 5-6 years ago, and brought Alice and a little baby thing to some of the early meetings. And now as a 4.5-year-old, she's one of the many, many children in the city who begs to go to open streets all summer long and asks me why we can't have open streets in front of our house. And, I think it's just her little voice speaking to how important this is. But I think, open streets are so special. They're transformative events that bring communities together. It shows what happens when you allow a community to have a blank slate to fill with community desires. And I think the diversity of the activities that we see throughout the city speaks to that, to what happens when the city allows our public streets to be used in this public way. That's not just for moving cars through our neighborhoods, but creating a space for our communities to come together. So I just wanted to gush briefly about open streets because I think it's so important. I'm really excited to see the city taking this new leadership role. I share Dr. Kotke's kind of assessment that this next year is more of a transition of us taking that kind of leadership role on. And And I think these were really great questions that people were asking about the timeline. And I know there's been kind of a push and pull in the past with the Bicycle Coalition, and some of our neighborhood organizations that have stepped up, where, we kind of need to decide how many events we're going to do first and then determine the routes. So there may need to be my observation would be there may need to be some kind of timing of deciding how many routes we could support and then choosing the routes, maybe in a separate action, but maybe not. But anyway, I'm really excited we're doing this. I'm really thankful to staff for writing the resolution and sort of capturing the unique qualities of open streets, because we had a lot of discussion about how open streets are different than other events and what they mean to our community. And I think that is very well reflected in the resolution. I'm very excited to support it.
Well, ditto on the Councilmember Bender's comments about the importance of it. It's, I think, universally been celebrated throughout all corners of the city. And I think that bespeaks the demand that we have to manage moving forward. And very much like the clarifying questions, that this very much is, the how we do what we intend to do does take some transition. But we did want to mark out how we wanted, or what we want to say about open streets moving forward as a city. We wanted to get that out there, get that approved, make that official, and then transition and make it sort of an operational reality. I would say that I have to thank all the staff work that went into this. It was not easy. We had some very big questions to answer and resolve. We have a fairness issue about other events throughout the city. We had to work through those issues. We had to discuss priorities and budgetary consequences. We also had some very significant legal things to untangle, and thanks to Ms. Hennessy, we were able to do that work and that untangling and find a clear, concise path that's, we think, durable, both legally and I think in terms of the sentiment of the community as they review this moving forward. So I appreciate that work as well, and the intent behind it and the goals that will be supported by this activity. So with that, there's no further discussion. I will move approval of this resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Dissenting nay? That carries. And we now are concluded with today's agenda. Thank you.